If you grew up in the traditional church, you were likely told that God exists as three distinct, co-eternal persons, and that they somehow equal exactly one God. Perhaps you dared to point out the logical friction in that, and you were probably brushed off with a polite, "It's a holy mystery," or worse, flagged for sliding into heresy. But did that model ever bring you peace? Or did it leave you trying to love a fragmented boardroom committee of deities, worshipping a stern, wrathful father who demands the violent execution of his peaceful son just to tolerate you? The truth is, you don't have to force your brain to rationalize theological violence. Let's heal that inner fracture. I'm David. Welcome back to our third place. This exhaustion with the traditional Trinity is actually woven into my family's DNA. My grandfather was a committed member of the Salvation Army. But a traditional view of a three-person Trinity made no sense to him, so he made the decision to walk away. Not because he hated God, he walked away because he knew, deep down, that God couldn't be a divided courtroom. And that search led him to discover the work of Emanuel Swedenborg. Theologians today, trying to explain the Trinity, use analogies where everything exists on the exact same flat level. They talk about water, ice and steam, three physical forms of the same substance. Or they talk about a three-leaf clover, or the three notes of a chord. To understand the view that brought my grandfather peace, we have to step away from flat plane logic entirely and look at different levels of existence. Think about what makes up you right now. You are one person, but you exist across different levels of reality that are entirely distinct from one another. First, you have an unseen intention, your deepest desires, your thoughts, your inner soul. You cannot touch a thought. You cannot put a desire under a microscope. It exists on a purely internal, spiritual level. Second, you have a physical manifestation, your body, your face, your vocal cords. This is how that invisible soul takes form and shows up in the material world so other people can interact with it. And third, you have an influence, the unique energy, the vibe or the impact you leave on a room when you walk into it. It's the comfort your presence gives to a friend or the shift in atmosphere when you speak. Your influence is a completely different dimension of reality than your physical bones or your hidden thoughts. Your soul, your body, and your influence are not the same substance, yet they are inseparably you. Centuries ago, Emanuel Swedenborg looked at the Church's traditional view of the Trinity and realized it had created an intensely painful psychological problem. By turning the Trinity into three separate persons, the Church had fractured its concept of God. Swedenborg completely bypassed that fractured paradigm by applying these three levels of existence to the divine. The Father is the infinite, hidden divine soul, the absolute, pure, uncreated core of unconditional love. The Son is the historical, visible body, the perfect human expression of that love walking on earth, making the invisible visible. And the Holy Spirit is the active, radiating divine influence, the tangible, healing energy of that love, transforming our lives, even today. The Trinity is not a divine boardroom committee. It is a single heart operating through three depths of reality. When you see it through these three vertical dimensions, the psychological trauma of a cosmic courtroom completely dissolves. And this brings us to the real problem this idea created. you end up with a divine Father who is unknowable because he cannot tolerate human imperfection. But let's be completely honest. If a human parent treated their children that way, we wouldn't call them holy, we would call them a monster. In his book True Christian Religion, Swedenborg wrote that attributing this kind of retributive wrath to God is an unspeakable crime. If you start with a broken multi-person courtroom framework at the top of your theology, your view of salvation becomes a cold legal transaction. Your view of hell becomes a divine torture chamber or dumping ground. Your view of church becomes a high control system designed to keep an angry judge happy. But if we step away from the courtroom, we can finally see the cross for what it actually was. It wasn't an act of a son pacifying an angry father. It was the ultimate descent of the divine soul into the darkest corners of human experience, absorbing the worst of human brokenness, hatred, and institutional corruption, and overcoming it with an indestructible, radiating influence of love. This integrated oneness is exactly what Jesus kept trying to tell people. In the Gospel of John, he states, "I and the Father are one." When his disciple Philip begs him to finally show them the Father, Jesus responds, "He who has seen me has seen the Father. I am in the Father, and the Father is in me." Even the famous baptismal command in Matthew uses the word name in the singular. It points to one single identity operating across three levels. When we deconstruct our faith, it's very natural to want to walk away from the entire concept of God. But what if the problem wasn't the divine reality itself? What if the problem was simply the broken, multi-headed model your church forced you to try and rationalize? You don't have to please a disciplinary committee, and you are allowed to rest in a single, integrated source of love. I want to pass the conversation over to you in the comments below. Did the traditional three-person Trinity ever make you feel spiritually anxious or unsafe growing up? Let's talk down below. Thanks for watching.